during vacation.
Okay, we're good.
Okay, we would like to welcome everyone here tonight to our work meeting. It is Thursday, March 6th. We want to welcome Debbie. She's on Zoom, and Lisa will be joining us, I believe, shortly. Okay, so let's just go through, start off as far as agenda items. If you have any questions, things we can discuss about our agenda items.
I do.
Okay,
Yeah.
should we start with the or the first thing on ours? I mean, not that we have to, but the first thing is going to be on the Matt Lowe. We want to, or we don't need to, but that's our first thing on our agenda.
I didn't really have anything on here, but do you guys?
Any questions? So,
Well, maybe Malcolm can answer this. So in our packet, it shows, and I probably know the answer, it says 153 lots. And it's on the recording that I listened to, it was 103. So what is it? Because 153 would be like 30 acres, right?
Yeah. Yeah, he is bringing the same plan that he's been discussing. He has two alternatives. One of them is a half acre one, that's probably the 100 lot, and the other one, but there are two of them. One of them is more of a blended one that's yielding a higher amount of lots. One of them was a straight half acre that was like 100. The blended one that's 153, I think he's donating that big park in the back.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I got it.
And so because he's donating that big park, he's kind of putting like a blended community where he's got some small lots and it yields a number of higher lots that we get that park. The other one's just like a straight half acre, 100 lot subdivision.
I got it. I thought these were both the same, but I can see it.
Yeah. So the one, just the donation of that lot in the back.
and the one, they're pretty much 30-acre lots, and the other one are half-acre lots, and then they still have those larger ones, but they actually go into the floodplain. So, but you do see on the one, it's,
So I guess that would be a little bit of a concern if.
Yeah, because he's donating this, in theory, you could give him a higher, you're getting more lots out of this one.
well, one thing.
This one is
and
not part of it.
Malcolm
This one is
can
just
explain-
one lot. He's gonna sell that as a lot. This one he's gonna try and build like there and have a big old, little farm.
So one thing too, what this is tonight is it is just, they're coming to ask if we are willing to open the general plan to amend our zoning. So it doesn't mean that we are approving tonight for zoning. All this means is whether you are willing to open the general plan or not. When Malcolm comes back in, I'll have him explain this a little bit to you too. So Malcolm and I went and met with a neighboring city that's a little bit further up. We went down and met with West Point. They kind of explained their process, which I'll have Malcolm explain that we think maybe it might be something for us to consider. We might want to do, we might not. So like we're doing tonight, they have them come and say, okay, well, first they went to planning commission, as you know, to ask this, and they were denied. So now they're coming to us. So that would be the proper procedure. But then what they do is then they put together a development plan that they work with city council to do that, which states, okay, if you are going to build in our community, this is the size, like if whether it's commercial or houses, this is what we expect. Even it could be the color that we would want them to be, if we wanted so much rock, if you want so much landscaping, whatever it would be. So that would come to city council and they'd say, yes, we really like this development plan. Then it would go to planning commission and they would have to approve that before they ever say we want quarter-acre lots, half-acre lots, commercial, whatever we're doing. So city council has more of a buy-in. Okay, this is the development agreement that we would even consider. And they said it works two ways. So one way is then we're not saying, okay, yes, we will let you rezone, and then we have no control. So they have to agree to what we want them to do before we would even let them rezone. But I'll let Malcolm explain a little better. Malcolm, I was just briefly telling him a little bit about.
So that raises
West
the question, would they fall under the new Title X thing, where, supposedly we would have control, but now there's new rules, so we really wouldn't. Is that right?
For which one?
I was talking about the development agreement. So they would come here tonight and then do the debate, so explain a little bit about that, how that process might look.
Yeah, in my opinion, we can do it however you guys want, but we, seems like Hooper has an application to open the general plan. But in my opinion, you guys can interpret, I don't think that that would, like if we did tonight decide, yeah, we'll open the general plan, that wouldn't grant anything or, you know, accept anything. It would simply just say we're going to begin a mutual process of developing a developers agreement and then B, the zoning that would take place as part of this and how those would coincide. And then we would bring both of those with the city council, get them figured out together, and then they'd have to reapply for a rezone they'd apply for a rezone application with their developers agreement, you know, in place as well, and then they'd be granted their rezone with the developers agreement in the city meeting after, you know, the general plan is open. But before we went through that process, I think it makes sense that they at least get a, you know,
a commitment. to
that we would be
open the
willing to
general
entertain it
plan.
if it was amenable, you know, throughout the process.
And then that maybe gives city council an opportunity to say, look, if we're gonna let you rezone, so tonight, all we're saying is yes or no, whether we're going to allow them to open the general plan. We're not saying we're going to allow them to rezone, it's just opening the general plan with the possibility of amending the general plan as far as the, what their zoning is. But then it would give city council the opportunity to say, okay, if we're going to allow this, this is some things, some considerations. Like Malcolm said, he's been working on one with the city, and they tell him what color, like us telling him, you know, color, if it has to be two-tone, landscaping, so much open space, so much, and that would be then up to city council to say, yes, we would like this in our community. And then it would go back to planning commission to say, okay, we're come back, we agree to this, we want to rezone.
It's kind of a
So-
way to allow the council to still have a say in what the whole thing looks like, because they don't approve the amendment of the general plan until they know what is going to be built. And you
Yeah.
kind of approve it all at the same time.
Mhm.
So that would be a way to avoid a new law that says the planning commission makes all the decisions because they can't make the decision on the changing the map.
Yeah, exactly, and I think that's the key that, and again, I'm so new, I don't understand, you guys may have taken some of these through, do understand better than me, but I think the last thing we wanna do is grant a zoning, a rezone at a meeting like tonight, right? We wanna hold the rezone until we're completely agreeable with the development. So I think this is like a preliminary, that's how I view our process should go.
It's really an amendment of the map, is the way to
Yes.
say it.
Yes, it's not- no, no,
It's an amendment of the general, of the land use map is what it is. We're not even considering a rezone at this point.
no.
So opening the general plan just changes the land use map to what's allowable.
Mhm. But I like having city council have some say with that, you know, what we would like to see. And then if they're not agreeable, and that would give you the opportunity to say, well, we would allow for this. They agree, then they can bring it for a rezone. If they don't agree, then they've got to change it to what city council thinks would be an agreeable plan. And then it would go to planning commission and then city council to, which they have to anyway for the rezone, and then they would start the process.
I would anticipate that, you know, if we said, yeah, we'll open the general plan, or however we wanna term it, that we would create a developers agreement at the city office level. You guys would go to a meeting, the planning commission, right, with the developers agreement, they would recommend that developer agreement to city council, and they go back to city council to accept the developers agreement as it's written with the rezone application at the same time. I think it'd go to both, you know, both entities too.
But again, the developer agreement you're talking about would be a development like this size lots and.
Yeah, I do think
Well-
at a high level, it's important that if they present something, would you consider opening this area or the map, like you guys just described, for something comparable to this? If we're way off, then it sure seems like we, you know, we don't want to go through that effort and that process if it doesn't have any merit or grounds at all, so.
I think the way it's presented is still way off, in my opinion. I mean, it's just rows and rows of barracks housing is all it looks like to me, whether it's 30 acre or half acre. I mean, it'd be fun to sit down with a land use architect and say, give us something that's amenable. Give us something that's nicer than rows and rows of.
And everything's below there's a lot of it that's below what's not
Yeah.
buildable. I mean, it's gonna be, yeah, below the 4220.
Here's what I've been thinking about this for now a while now, because he's back and forth, and when he comes up, I want to just kind of reiterate the timeline of what he's been in for this and that. Just kind of catch everybody up to where we're at, but I got thinking about, like, in my opinion, you know, all these developers they say that they want to do something good for the community. We want to help you, da, 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 da. This right here, the only thing that's gonna benefit the community is gonna bring good people.
Right.
And with that comes a cost. So I think, what the heck can you do? So I would like to see, and I would definitely consider open general plan if we did, you know, say you did a 9-hole golf course and put like, and we give him some higher density than even half acre. He could still, he can do 60 acres. He could do a 9-hole par 3 with a couple 4s, probably a miniature golf, maybe even a driving range. He might have to partner with Heritage up there. And then he could build on the floodplain. You know, he could put the golf course and utilize that. All the houses would be up front towards the road, so his cost would be less than. I would like him to look at something like that, you know.
I would anticipate that, I would be shocked if they think one of these is the alternative that's gonna be selected. I think they're coming again simply because they went to planning commission, they waited their year planning commission at one point, I think Sheldon mentioned. Consider, you know, look at something else that would be beneficial. They've been really lost and keep asking me, what else does this you want? But similar to what you're saying, they want some direction on what would be entertaining or not.
And I think within that, you could have a pro shop, you could have a cafe, you could have,
Something commercial.
yeah, something commercial, you could have office buildings, you know, the Ogden Airport's close by. Yeah, there are a lot of golf courses in town, but I think it's still something to look at. That would be a benefit to the community, I see. And we could probably give him high enough density where it would pencil for him in his terms, that it would make sense for him to build it. That's what I would like to see, something like that, instead of just another liability, you know, because that's all we've done is houses. Let's need something to stimulate the community and be an asset. But we don't want to run the golf course. It's not a city golf course, it'd be private.
So the one time he came in, I suggested, go look at Green Farms, which I always say that, but I think it's one of the most well-designed communities, you know, developments I've seen. They have that little community center, they have pickleball, and then I said that, and then they came back and it was the Barry style. And I think I offended him at that meeting because I said, this looks like Barry's to me, and it does. So I agree, Bryce. I think if they bring something that looks like it would be something, but I think this is where, like Malcolm's talking about, this development agreement, that then as a city council with staff and planning commission, we need to figure out what we want the city to have. Like, what are we encouraging people to bring, not just rows and rows of houses. Okay, any other comments, thoughts on that? We'll wait and see what they present tonight, and it is a public hearing, and so it will be opened up for people to be able to, you know, make comments with the public hearing. And so then after we close that, then his motion will be, or whatever he's going to be asking us to do, running, like you said, to look at the general plan with the opening of that. Okay, Bryce, you said you had some things you wanted to.
Oh, just
talk
on,
about.
I do have some things, but if you want to just go through your agenda item.
Well, I think that was the first agenda item.
Okay.
Did you have anything else?
We can just
on
go
it?
through the agenda. I can do this at the end. I got like some bullet points I just want, that I've
Okay.
written down that I'd like, just in writing. Sometimes we request something and it kind of gets lost and then we never get it. So
Get back
I put
to
it
it.
in writing so I can have a copy of it.
Okay, well, then we can go on. And so one thing we're going to be, well, of course, the minutes are next. But then one thing we're going to be talking about tonight, well, a couple of things as far as with legal. So we have the legal interim services, also the RFP for legal services, which is what we need to discuss with that tonight. So I did go back and find back in On May 3rd of 2001, there was a resolution appointing Reed Richards as our Hooper City Attorney. Reed had given me some direction where to go look for that. So I need to see what you feel like that we need to do with that. It doesn't list Brandon, so I still feel like we probably, this is just my thinking, we need to have some kind of probably a contract. Or, you know, we are supposed to have things go out to bid. So whatever you think with that, but just
I think, was that 2001?
2001, it
Yeah,
was
'cause-
May 3rd, 2001.
Yeah, because a friend of mine was on the city council
Mhm.
and he remembers doing that.
Yeah.
I didn't know where to find it.
Yeah, we had two bids at that time from two different law firms, and they selected Reed.
Here's what I'm thinking on all this. I think when Ryan made the motion to do an RFP and retract the RFP and do an intern thing, I don't think we had all the information necessary. So what I think we're all in agreement that we want to retain Brandon and Reed. I mean, that's a given. We've all decided that. So to do an RFP and have an intern contract is unnecessary. You know, we don't need to do that. We don't need to put an RFP out. I don't believe we did one for JUB. I think we just need to initiate a contract that's agreeable to us and Brandon and Reed with the fee structure and kind of what's expected, and then go from there. I think it's just going to be some wasted time if we do the RFP. I think it would be, you know, in my opinion, it would be kind of offensive to them. Like, hey, you want us, but now you're going to go solicit, you know, other bids. I don't think that's what we want.
Right, and as far as I know, an RFP is not a legal requirement
That's right.
for this situation.
It only is when you want to make a change. And from the consensus of the city council, we don't want to make a change.
If Brandon and Reed are agreeable.
If they're, yeah. You
Yeah, we
got
had a pretty good talk actually yesterday about all this. And I thought it was very productive actually. And this, and I think what we're going to talk about maybe in a few minutes on how we run meetings. I'm glad to see Kylie here. I think he can be a good part of that, but we're happy to go ahead. I would like to have a little more flexibility from my end to not attend all your meetings. If you have a meeting you think I need to come to or Brandon needs to come to, I think that's great. But I don't think you need me at all meetings, frankly, and there's no sense paying the cost of having me here. If you've got a legal question, I think happy to answer those things and come to a meeting if there's a need to do that. We talked about the possibility of maybe having one of us, usually Brandon, but maybe me sometimes, come out once a week to meet with Malcolm and go over all of the land issues that we have. That really is part of the ordinance that you passed a few weeks ago anyway, that little committee has an attorney giving some advice. And if that was a standard time each week, then if any of you had questions or any things that you wanted to bring up legally, you could come and we could do those at the same time. That would seem to me to be maybe a more efficient way of doing what you need, probably cheaper for you. And for me personally, my Thursday nights are pretty valuable. I've got a lot of grandkids, a lot of ball games that I miss, and I'd love to be able to do those. So anyway, that's my thought. But we'd love to keep working with you. I love Hooper City, and I feel like we've been part of the whole creation of your city. And I get a little emotional about that. It's a great place to live. So anyway, that's my thought.
I feel like we do need to have some kind of, like I say, an agreement contract, something that actually lists Brandon.
And we can certainly do that. We can
Yes.
certainly put together a contract, and the contract in my mind would be similar, not as verbose as the one with JUE, but similar to that. What you're doing is just saying, we'll be your attorney. Here's the rate that we'll charge. It's open-ended. If you decide you don't want us anymore, that's fine. If we decide we can't do it anymore, that's fine. And it just gives you something in writing to add to what was in the resolution years ago. And we're happy with that.
Okay, that sounds good. Any other thoughts,
Is that all right?
questions? Okay, okay. Okay, so the next thing then, is, discussing on the agenda. So that was really interesting because when I was going through, Morgan and I were to try to find this. You'll see in our Municode, and that's in the packet, and it shows the meeting agenda, the order of business shall be. When they very first started, and it was right in this order, you know, they had this approval of it, I mean, they actually listed them like this. We don't, it was in the, it's like this.
Right
was
in
this
code.
page,
Mm.
yeah, it was in the packet,
But the whole.
of the whole packet, yeah.
I can pull it up. if you want. I don't remember why that was done. It's a bit-
On the backside.
Anyway, so you'll see that there are things with this, and I think, you know, it was mentioned about citizen comments. And so right at the beginning, it has been at the end, but this is up to you, what, as a city council, what we want to do. Some of these things that are listed on here, we don't really do anymore in our city council agendas. So I think we need to decide how we want our meetings to look like. This has not been changed since the city was created. And this was what came about in like November of 2000. And so, you know, you see the approval of the minutes, of course, approval of business licenses is needed. There are very few business licenses that city council actually approves. Those are just the commercial ones. And there's only specific commercial ones that even city council approves. So, you know, how their agendas looked is they had all of these things, and then if there was something underneath them, they did them. And then if not, they didn't. So I don't know, we maybe want to change our Municode and arrange this differently, or maybe take some of these off, whatever, how you feel like you want it to be. You know, we have had a discussion about, so like I say, public citizens' comments have always been at the end. Some cities do them at the beginning. Some cities do have them open to anything. Some cities have them only on agenda items. And, you know, as we've talked about, if you have them open to anything at the beginning of the meeting, then every meeting does basically become a public hearing. But again, that's up to city council, if that's what you want to do. Sometimes that gets difficult. So some suggestions with that. If we do open that up, so every meeting we have comments at the beginning and they can be on anything. A really good suggestion that I heard from someone in this room was that then maybe we have a limit and we say, okay, we will take 10 public comments and people sign in. And then we take that list and those 10 people get to, because if not, we could possibly have an hour or two just of public comments before we ever start the meeting, if we do that every time. But again, we've never really had a discussion on this, you know? The only thing we ever did was we kind of discussed, you know, because I was listening at the beginning. Yeah, that was Lieutenant Slater.
He's dying to comment.
I was gonna say.
He gave me that great suggestion.
Well,
Lieutenant?
Limiting
He's
it.
got some great ideas.
Yeah, come sit up
This
here.
chair's for them.
Come join us.
I will comment, I don't know if we've had a problem with that before.
Well, you'll notice also on that same ordinance, it says that the city council by majority vote can change the order or can.
Yeah, sure.
So you don't really need to do an ordinance, but you can change it however you want.
Sure. Mhm. And I wondered if that was kind of when it talks about the convenience of the applicants, because sometimes we have done that. You know, we'll have someone and then someone will make the motion, well, let's have this first rather than making them wait. One pro about having them at first is people don't like sometimes waiting to the end. They want to come and make their public comment and leave. So we kind of, okay, anyway, tell them, because she's the one that gave me that suggestion about the 10.
Yeah, so some of my history, I've worked with the county commission for the last 3.5 years. They made some changes. I worked with the school board. You know, the school board has I think it started out as a paper sign-in. There's now electronic sign-in. Definitely, any of these ways, there's pros and cons to everything, right? But sometimes people want to be heard on the agenda for discussions being made. You know, there is the public comments, right? Or the public hearing issue that everything turns into it. So moving forward, I don't know that I have an exact thing, but sometimes people want to be heard for the agenda items. One of my thoughts is that, having it open at the end of the meeting potentially can bring controversy, right? And so you have a great meeting that lasts 30 minutes, you get your business done, the same concept applies at the start. You then could have a line of citizens that want to talk for 3 minutes apiece, and you get 20 of those, you're at an hour. So about anything, right? So kind of that orderly meeting, that would just be some thoughts of however you wanted to do it. Again, I don't have a pro or con either way. The county commission had some contentious items come up. They did 10 for, 10 against. They believe, the public didn't appreciate that, but at the start of the meeting, I believe they only had 4 or 5 for the item. They were able to fill those last, but then that way it schedules an hour for public comments. You might as well put it into a public hearing at that point, maybe. I don't know all the rules and intricacies.
We've had comments at the last couple of meetings that I've been at about having taken off the ability to comment on things on the agenda. And it's true, I've suggested that maybe that's not the thing you want to do, but that's certainly up to you. It's not a legal issue, it's a policy issue. The challenge is if you let them comment about things on the agenda, if you've got a real hot topic on the agenda, it really turns it into a public hearing every single time. And so there is some merit to say, if you want a public hearing, set a public hearing, don't allow a public hearing on every issue on the agenda. But that, again, is your decision. If you want to do that, you can certainly do it. There clearly is merit in letting people come in and talk about things that they think you need to know. If it's a problem with a fence in their area or whatever, a roving dog. What I think you also will need to do is make it clear that public comments cannot be personal attacks. I think that's been deplorable in my opinion when those have taken place the last few meetings. I think if you just make that clear, you're happy to talk, or you're welcome to talk about business and things with the city. But if you want to make comments about persons and people, particularly council or other employees or workers in the city, we're not here to do that. And there was a question, are we taking away their free speech? The answer to that is no, they have no right to have free speech in your meeting. You don't even have to give them public comment if you don't want. So you can certainly restrict that extent what they say if you want to do. So anyway, those are my thoughts.
The other one comment to that is if, where the city is districted and the council represents a portion of that, and we can reach out to the mayor, any of the council people, if they did want to talk about an issue within their neighborhood or whatever, we'll just change that format to reach out to one of you to have it put on the agenda. I mean, even at that point, you could put it as a presentation and give them 20 minutes to talk about it, right? So just as it's articulating the agenda a little bit, that's some more, just differences in things, but then that way your public comments at the start, and you could talk about speed limit issues or whatever we want to talk about. You don't necessarily then even have to do a motion on it. You could table that and sort of just discussion. So that's my thoughts. Just maintaining the order after the meeting has been arguably one of the problems, and I think some of that's been from conversation with the mayor that anything goes at the end of the meeting is the problem.
So it worked out well for the school district and for the commissioners.
Yeah.
Their formats have worked out pretty good.
Again, the Ogden Valley issue wasn't really well accepted by the public but it's also not productive to stand up and let 60 people talk for 3 minutes about the same thing. You're just getting up and repeating, right? So as you look at meeting productivity, meeting overall, right? I mean, balancing that as far as the council and the mayor, that's having a good objective meeting. Maybe it's 15 opposed and 15 for, whatever that looks like, right? I mean, just in that workaround, to answer your question, it went well that night. I mean, the public was upset but commissioners felt that that's what they needed to do. My time during the COVID mandates and the mask mandates up at the school district, like I was involved in those conversations, and so highly contentious, if you will. Yeah, we had big public turnout every meeting that have those contentious items, and so it's just how we navigate through those and still let the public voice their concern, but maintain that order and.
I think if we decide to do something like Reed said, that we say, if they come up and have a city issue, that's fine, but we're not going to allow for public attack or, personal attacks, then I would address that before the public comments. I think that statement would actually need to be made, so people know that if they start to make a personal attack, that they would be stopped, and we would entertain anything on a city issue. But again, that has to be something that you want to do. But if we do, I think that needs to be something stated.
You
Yeah.
probably need to train us on what constitutes somebody out of line, right? Because there's
Yeah.
obviously they can say a whole lot, but.
I mean, there is definitely a point in time where thick skin has to be had as a public official, right? But, being sure that we're still, my position as a law enforcement officer and sheriff's deputy, right, is that we don't restrict First Amendment. It has to be in relation to the meetings and being, understanding the parliamentary procedure, and I'm not an expert in it, but understanding when we can activate that sergeant at arms for the meeting.
I was just going to say, I like a lot of these ideas. My main concern and want is that we do allow the public comment like we've had. I want the citizens of Hooper to feel like what they're saying is being listened to and heard. And I think that's really important for us as a council to take into consideration.
That to the front.
So as far as limiting it to 10 people or whatever we decide, are we gonna have a pre-sign up or can they come?
I mean, if you go to the school board's website right now, they have online sign up. I did a little homework this afternoon, just.
Initially.
Yeah, we probably maybe have to announce it for a couple of meetings that we're going to start doing this, if that's what you want to do, so they would know that.
Just would hate to exclude anybody that doesn't know the
Mhm.
procedure.
Yeah,
I mean, obviously, the online platform would require something to do with the webmaster and all that, so, simple paper form.
some of you were probably in that class that we took down when it was down at the league meeting, and they talked about First Amendment rights. They showed us some really bad videos of meetings that were out of control, and I'm not saying ours are like that, but they really did say, yes, you have to honor people's First Amendment rights, but you don't have to allow for people to get up and say terrible things about a city council member or a planning commission member. And that is something that, like Reed has mentioned, as a city council, we can say that. We are not going to allow that.
The other thing that I think, and you've done a pretty good job of this, I didn't see such a good job in the planning commission in meetings. I think there needs to be an understanding that there's not going to be clapping and cheering. I think that's very intimidating to anybody that has a different point of view. And I think you just should allow it.
Yeah.
And there are state laws that do come into effect for disruption of a meeting, right? That has to be done at the chairman or the council, like they have to be found out of line in that respect. So I mean, if you watched the presidential debate the other night, right? Or not debate, but the address.
Got to carry the guy out.
Yeah, they activated the sergeant at arms and escorted that person out. So again, that's pretty high end, high level, 30,000-foot view of that, right? But just understanding how that process works. I'm not the expert in it, but I've been exposed to, we've had to ask people to leave the commission meetings and being able to ask somebody to stand up, if there's a document that they're going to read that's 20 pages long, how do you control that? if it is a disruption of the meeting, right? So, because essentially, 10 people stand up and talk for 3 minutes. Just keep going. Yeah.
It's hard to be on Zoom because I don't know when people, I've got a little bit of a delay, so I hope I don't interrupt anyone. So no problem. I appreciate your input. I was wondering maybe if it might be as simple as just limiting the time frame that we allow comments. You know, like we're going to allow comments from this time to this time, and at that point it ends and they have their 3 minutes, and enforce that. And then we wouldn't have, you know, in case someone thinks of something, you know, after they've gotten there or whatever. And maybe it might be as simple as just doing that.
Yeah, there's definitely many options, I think, that the council has
Sure.
to formulate a decision,
We can always change, we can try one way and if it doesn't work, we can tweak it.
and I believe so.
I think so too.
Absolutely.
Well, so look at this, you know, this is, I mean, this is something that's on the agenda tonight to discuss and make a motion. If you feel like we're ready to make a motion as far as what we want to do. Tonight's agenda is already set, so we couldn't change it, but this is certainly, you know, with something I think we should discuss and see how you would want that to be, and then that's something that we could do, so. Okay, so a couple of, oh, you know what, Bryce, let's do yours, because I just have a few announcements.
Okay.
Did you have some things you wanted to?
So I wrote some things down after we did after our meeting the other night, and then our budget meeting, I have some questions that, unfortunately, Ryan, a lot of this is gonna fall on you. I'm gonna give you some homework, so, there's some bullet points that I'd like to be addressed. So I'd like a detailed invoice, and this has to be with you two, Reed, but I think it'd be pretty easy for your secretary to do. From Reed and Brandon Richards, which includes who contacted them and what it was regarding for like the past 12 months. And then also the total amount spent on engineering costs, which would be JUB invoiced itemized since Bryant Jacobs quit. Because it looks like engineering is, I just want to get a thumb, it just looks like engineering is kind of everywhere. And I would like to see exactly what we're spending. And then also the total amount spent on accounting services since Teresa quit. It looks, from my perspective, it looks like it's triple. I don't know if that's correct or not, but it's something to figure out, just because I think, yeah, we took that chunk of money and hired some very good employees with that. However, there's still some holes that I think. Then I would also like the total amount collected from our utility tax. And we began in October, it was a little sparse October that year, the end of 2023 to present. It looks like, you know, in my simple math, there's probably been six, maybe 700,000 collected. And in our budget, I think there's maybe 200 in that. I'd just like to know where it's going, what it's been used for, and those kind of things. Then another thing, as a council, we'd like, because I know the city has some potential litigation going. From what I understand, there's 3. I'd like someone to be able to update us on that and see where we're at. And I think what we need to do is appoint a person from the city council to act as liaison in Hooper City's on their legal insurance policy. Because from my understanding, the mayor has some potential conflicts of interest with being the contact just because of your situation. And if that policy's been enacted, I'd like to know who approved any claim, if any claim is currently present, to use the Hooper City's legal insurance policy. So those are some things that were brought up through the course of the last couple of meetings that I'd like, and I think we owe it to our citizens to have some clarity and some transparency on what happened. So I'm gonna give.
Yes, that would be good, and then I can give it to Cammy.
So I presume you're not talking about criminal litigation. There would be
No.
hundreds of those.
No, just from our city.
But that's from the city.
Yeah.
You've probably got 300 criminal cases.
Well,
over the last year.
you know the ones I'm talking about, Morning Meadows and
So those, okay.
those.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. And I will have, Bryce, are you okay if Tammy addresses these at our budget work meeting?
I mean, that's okay,
Yeah.
other than she's $250 an hour. Ryan's free.
Well, no, but I mean,
I'm just kidding.
I mean, at our budget work meeting, she could address
Sure.
these because it's in our financials.
That'd be great,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. Okay, did you have anything else?
So I'd just like the council to maybe, nominate someone to actually extract some of that information. I was thinking Devin would be a good one to do that, and I guess we'd all just have to agree upon it. Doesn't have to be a motion, it's just kind of a rule, so.
So all the budget things as well, or you're meaning?
No,
Ryan
not
on
the budget things, just
budget.
have to do with the legal stuff, the liaison with our
Mhm.
legal insurance policy, just so we know what's going on.
Okay, and some of them, as you know, have to be done in a closed door meeting. We do have some.
Well, I'm sure
So,
we'll follow all the rules.
Yeah,
So.
yeah, okay, that sounds good. Okay, a couple of things coming up then. So Stephanie Russell from Weaver County has a program that she goes around to cities, and she calls it Community Vision. And she sits down with the planning commission, with the city council, and she will go through and say, okay, what would you like to see in your community? And give us your ideas. And it's one that she said has been really pretty effective. She's done it, if I start quoting the cities, I will probably get them wrong, but she does it. And she said that is something that she would be, and it's free, the county pays for it because it's part of a county program. If that's something that you would be interested in having, and she said she could come one time and kind of outline the program that the county has. And if we feel like that's something that we're interested in, then she could tell us what things she has available that she could bring. If it's something that we're not interested in, then we could say, no, we're not interested. So I don't know if that's something, but that's what she called it, community visioning. And she said they just go through and say, what are your vision for the city? Like, what kinds of things are you seeing? She had suggested, if you were, possibly doing it on March the 12th, which is a Wednesday from 5 until 7. She said she would bring, she told me the other person, there's a new person that's in the county that she would bring with them. She also mentioned to Malcolm that she could answer questions if anybody has about like the CRA, something's came up with the LRB with that. So is that something you would like me to have her come? Like she said, she can come one time. If it's something that we're not interested in, then she says she doesn't have to again, but she would like to at least present some of the programs that the counties have for cities that are available. Any thoughts? Yeah, she said city council, planning commission. She said if there's others, and I said, well, we do have that new community board, and we have like an economic committee with that. And she said, well, sure, if they would be interested in coming. So that.
I was gonna say, I don't think we should make any decision until we've heard the presentation to understand it more.
Well, that's what I thought too. She said, I can come and show you, and if you're not interested, then just tell me no, you're not. And then she said she doesn't have to come back. So that's when she had scheduled it to be possible, March the 12th, from 5 to 7, which is next Wednesday. Okay, along with that, they also sent a flyer, and it is called the Development Symposium. And this is on March the 19th from 9 a.m. until 2 p.m. and it's in the Eccles Center. And she said, and I can have Morgan send you out all these dates too, because I'm giving you a lot of dates. This is in the Ogden Eccles Center, and it is rooted in growth. And she said it's on cultivating communities. And again, they're going to have planners there. There is a $25 charge, which could be, the city could cover that, and it's lunch included. And so she said this again would be for planning commission, city council, city planner, and that is March 19th from 9 to 2 at the Eccles Center. And so again, I'll have Morgan forward you this flyer.
What's it called again?
It is called the Northern Utah Development Symposium.
Okay.
So, and there is a charge because it does include lunch. And so that's why there's a charge. But like I said, we can send this out to you. It says they would like us to register by March 16th if you are interested in going to that. And so we will send that out to you. Okay, so another thing, Luke in our public works has given his 2 weeks notice. He is going to start his own company. And so he has been working with roads, parks, sewer, well, anything public works related, yes. And so Morgan has talked to Jared, and Jared would like to have that job put out for opening, so we will do that, because his last day will be 17th of March. So he was really great with that, so we appreciate that. Okay, another thing, I've had a few residents that have already reached out. It is warm weather now, and we have a lot of bikes in the roads. Not only are they in the roads, but they are on city property. They are riding in our detention ponds. And they're making quite a mess out of the grass in those ponds. And already down at the corner of 55 and 51. And I know, Bryce, we're meeting on Monday, which will be great because we're going to talk about some of the city-owned properties and maybe there's something. But that's something I think as a council, we need to decide what we want to do. If someone ends up getting injured on city-owned property, then where does the liability fall? And again, it's been nice weather, not today, but we have, and the main concern for the city, I feel like with liability, is they're on city property. And so, do you have any?
Did you say lights?
There are like they're like motorcycles, four-wheelers.
We tried to put signage on numerous places because of that.
Yeah, but now they're riding in our detention ponds.
Put up a sign. I
Yeah.
think once you put up a sign that says no trespassing, whatever we did, no motorized vehicles. But that really is the city's
Liability,
liability.
yeah,
That's what they say, no more.
So that's
yeah.
That sounds like.
So I know that they, one of the neighbors said that he's called several times, but then by the time, like, an officer gets there, they've already left. So they have a really hard time catching them. But I talked to Steve about it today, and Steve said they are literally ruining the grass in our detention ponds. He said Hooper Landing's one that always looked so nice. Now there's just big, deep ruts from them riding in there. It interferes with the grading, with the slope, so the water's not flowing properly.
Sergeant Slater, how do you
So-
suggest to him?
The best thing is just call when it's there. I mean, we can put it out if there's specific times that they're always there. That helps, but
Probably need a sign if we can do this.
Yeah. And we know that's going to be, it was a problem last year, and already it's starting, but I don't really remember so much last year in our detention ponds, but maybe it's because we put the signs up in there, but there's already kids down here on this corner, and it does say no motorized vehicles, and they're already there. I've seen them at the last couple of days.
Maybe one option is if someone knows who they are, turn that over to him and just go have a talk with him. Give him a warning, I don't want him to get in trouble. Say, hey, you're not supposed to do this. You're costing the city money. And just keep a record of, who's doing it, and hopefully they quit and they learn their lesson. Because when I was a kid, I probably would have been one of those kids, But once you say, hey, don't do it, I think they'll listen.
now we know who they are, we can help address that. And
We had all sorts of problems last year down by the park with a lot of kids, and I know Steve said that he stopped them several times. Steve said, I spend a lot of time getting this grass to be nice. They were not very respectful, and they did not stop. And I know, back when it was Lieutenant Leslie, I called him nonstop, and they would come but anyway, then we'll tell them to get signs up. That's the first step, and I think to put the signs up, and then we have a newsletter that's going to be coming out here shortly, and maybe we could even have something in the newsletter that just reminds them that they're not allowed to ride on city property. So, okay. So one other thing real quick. So back in 2004, Hooper City and Hooper Irrigation signed a franchise agreement, which was kind of we want to be neighborly. We know we need to help each other. Hooper Irrigation was putting in their secondary system, and they were putting a lot of pipes in our right of way. And then also we were hooking up to that secondary water. And so we signed an agreement that says we won't charge you for all the excavation fees. You won't charge us for the hookup. One thing that has to be done, and it probably won't be done now, but we're planning on they're starting in that this fall, is we're going to be hooking up the cemetery to secondary water. They've been watering out of the canal, which has been fine, but not really, because then when they take that water out of the canal, then that takes water away from the farmer that might be waiting for that water downstream. So I met with Hooper Irrigation yesterday, and they said to ask city council if you are still okay with that, with this franchise agreement, that we will not charge them, they will not charge us, and we will work together. And I feel like it's a good thing to do. I said to, the president, President Hancock, I said, I don't see any reason for Hooper to send you a bill, to you to send us a bill. I think we should be working together. And so is that something you're still agreeable with?
I think it's highly in our favor. Would you agree?
Most definitely.
I think so. Jared, like I got some prices today. Jared was out today with some health issues, but I got some prices of how much we charge for excavating fees. And since we've been charging some of our, so it's like 40 cents, I think it was a square foot. So back when they put all that pipe in our right of way, it would have been substantial. Okay, on their part, when we hook up to a water fee to hook up a connection like at the cemetery, that's also substantial. And so he said, if we're agreeable to it, he will take it back to their board of directors on Monday and see if they're still agreeable. And then, we don't know if we want to sign something new, because like I say, that was 2004, but they do have something in place, but there'll be that water connection. So we have water in the back, the new part of the cemetery, there's a connection, but that doesn't really work to water the front, but it is already stubbed in the road. Dirk Bailey, when I talked to him, it's already there. We just have to hook into it. But when we water the pickleball courts, we also are going to have to do a water connection. And those are quite substantial now. So, okay, everybody feel like that's so okay, and we can say we're okay with keep doing that?
Yes, I do. I think it's a great thing for the city. I think we will benefit a great deal.
Yeah,
He's gonna
I
take it to the
agree.
board. The
Uh-huh.
president, so they haven't
Uh-huh.
really decided yet. He's gonna take it to the board.
So he's going to say, just like I presented to you, we've had this franchise agreement since 2004. Hooper City still is agreeable to keep this in place. Are you still agreeable to keep this in place? And, he felt really good about it. I feel really good about it. And if you do, and we'll see how the board feels, but, we are neighbors, even though we're two separate companies. We need to work together. There's been times when we've taken a tractor down to help them, and there certainly are times when they've been here to help us. And I think that's how it should be. So, yeah. Okay. Well, anything else then before we?
I have a question.
Yes.
When we talked about, is it LRB that came in with this
Yes.
study?
Yes.
We mentioned in that meeting about them coming to present to the planning commission.
Mhm.
And I think we even brought up a possible public hearing for that. But I don't know what was said, I can't remember. Is that gonna be on their next agenda?
Well, it isn't, because they're not going to be talking. The Terra Strata is not coming in March. They're probably not coming until April is when they were. So they thought it was kind of in coordination with that. When they came, they would come. We have already done a public hearing for that, but we don't necessarily need to do another public hearing, but yes, we will see if they will be willing. We'll probably, they'll have to be paid. I'm assuming it was only one time in their contract.
So the gentleman.
Seems like he said he'd come again.
He said he was
Yeah.
agreeable to come and do it.
Yeah.
So I wonder if he came, if Terra Strada's not coming in March, maybe he comes in March. Gives people some time to digest it.
Yeah, we have a pretty big agenda because they
You do
didn't
in
have a
March?
meeting last time, and I think we've had 3 additional things that have added on since then, but we could certainly check and see if he could come in. Yeah, that's what,
Well, depending on how we move forward with the public comment. When we see that on the agenda, they can get a comment prior to or whatever we decide to put in here on that. And it's not calling a public hearing.
Well, it doesn't have to be a public hearing, it's a public presentation.
Public comment, presentation, yeah. So I think there's some people that wanted to comment and had a couple of questions. We gotta give them the opportunity.
hey, Well, thank you. We'll move up to our regular meeting then.
No, you're good.